So welcome colleagues, friends, doctors, students. Today, this episode is a little bit different from most academic activities. And here, I thought I must share a story. In fact, a couple of stories. One of the stories is my story and the other is of our very famous scientist Gregor Mendel. All of you would remember him as the father of modern genetics. So early part of my career, when I just finished my medical education and I was very much interested in academics and research, I took up working with homeopathic links. My job was to collect articles, to edit them, and then to send it to publish them. The task was way difficult than what I actually imagined it to be. Initially, I was very excited that I will read some wonderful cases, wonderful material written by some of the best people, but to get even a single article was extremely painful. It would take months or weeks to months to even get the article. And remember, in those days, there were no emails. We had to physically collect the copy or it had to be faxed. And then it had to be manually edited for every error, grammatical mistakes and many things. So making a 50-page journal was a Himalayan task. And there was always a deadline to make one. Today, nearly more than 25 years to this part of my career, this story remains almost the same. To get something published is very difficult. Why it is so difficult? I was just looking into it. One of the reasons why things are so difficult is because our very formal, our very primary education doesn't stress upon formal publishing. And if you have to publish something, it is not that you have recorded it, you have made a history out of it, for example, a case, and then you give it to the journal and it's done. It doesn't work like that. If you have to publish something, you have to start with the idea that I will publish this work and create a format accordingly and record the data accordingly. So this, I believe, is a training that comes at primary education level and which we have missed. So this is one of the reasons why we are all wary of publishing and putting things into a very organized manner. The other thing that I feel, and which I personally experience it also, is I feel the material that I've got is not really good enough to publish. Now this is quite a problem that we really need to look into. Yet I am quite convinced that whatever little grain of wisdom and truth that we have discovered for ourselves need to be shared in however which way. Maybe a formal peer-reviewed journal, maybe a not so stringent popular journal, or maybe social media like what I am doing today. And to convey why this sharing is important, I will attempt to share a story of Gregor Mendel, who discovered the law of inheritance and whom we all know as the father of modern genetics. And genetics is a subject which we all dread. So the story goes like this. February 8, 1865 marked the date. This is very important. It's 7 years after Darwin had read his papers at the Linnean Society in London, and Mendel makes his presentation of breeding the pea plant experiment that we are all familiar with in two parts, but at a much smaller, very less known forum. And who were the people who were listening to his presentations? They were not scientists in a way. They were farmers, botanists, and biologists at the Natural Science Society of Brno. The second part of this paper was read out exactly after a month on March 8. And what exactly transpired during this time, no one really has kept a transcript, because this forum was very, very tiny, very, very less known. Nobody knew it. And when he was presenting this, there were only 40 people in the whole forum. Imagine a paper that is going to change the way world would look at heredity was presented just in front of a small audience of 40, not even scientists in the true sense, and nevertheless it was done. And for most biologists and botanists, what Mendel presented was a mumbo jumbo, because a lot of Mendel's work was actually statistical. So it was mathematics, and he had to counting thousands of samples and then statistical understanding. I'm sure most of them have even gone to sleep. In fact, the last person who really talked about mathematics before Mendel was Pythagoras. That was several hundreds of years ago. So once Mendel was done, so one of the professor of botany stood up, and since it was time of Darwin and Darwin was on the rise, this same professor came in and started discussing Darwin's paper of evolution. Now imagine Darwin's paper of evolution and Mendel's laws of inheritance. Today, for us, the two are deeply connected and the connection is obvious. But in that room, no one even realized that these two papers, what Mendel had read and what they were discussing on Darwin, had any connection whatsoever. Then, what really happened? That Mendel himself, a very, very shy man, not really very confident that what he had really done would really make such a big change, had also published his paper in the same proceedings of the Brno Natural Science Society. And a work which needed over a decade was just put into 40 boring pages of a scientific journal full of statistical data. And then Mendel himself, to at least spread what he had done, got several reprints of that article. In those days, remember, no internet. You had to actually get the hard copy and send it. So he sent it to many, many scientists in the world. One of them was Darwin, and it's not even sure whether Darwin really bothered to read his paper. Remember, Darwin himself was struggling with the idea of the units of inheritance, of units of heredity, and yet it doesn't seem that he read that paper. And then there is a very interesting quote that I will really read it out from the book from where I get this story. So what the author writes, what followed, as one geneticist writes, was the strangest silence in the history of biology. Mark these words, strangest silence in the history of biology. This Mendel's paper was cited only 4 times in a span of 35 years, from 1866 to 1900. Only 4 citations of this paper. It virtually disappeared from the scientific literature. Then, as this idea of evolution and human heredity were really gaining popularity and really gaining lot of momentum in the minds of the consciousness of that era. What happened is that in somewhere around in 1900, there was another scientist called Hugo de Vries, who was also working on the same idea as Mendel was working, and he again had done work with the plants. And when he was reviewing his literature, he came across Mendel's paper. And what he had discovered, Mendel already had mentioned it in great detail 35 years ago. And this was quite a shock to him. And the only way he could then deal with this shock was to really not speak about Mendel in his publication at all. So here there was a willful suppression of the wisdom, of the truth that was already discovered. In fact, the book writes very beautifully. Being rediscovered is a proof of scientists' pre-science. What is pre-science? Pre-science is knowledge, insights gained before an experimental proof is available for the subject. And then he says, being rediscovered thrice is an insult. What it means that 3 separate papers in a very short span of how many? 3 months in 1900 independently worked and came to Mendel's idea, Mendel's insights. So you see the silence that was being spoken about from 1866 to 1900. No quotation of this, no citation of this paper. Nobody talks about it, and when someone gets to know about it, he tries to suppress it. But as things would be, when this work by de Vries, Hugo de Vries, was published, his peers read through and they could see that de Vries had actually done what we understand as plagiarism. He had stolen material from Mendel's paper and did not mention him. Finally, as this momentum gathered, de Vries himself had to give in. And in his next subsequent analysis on plant hybrids, he profusely acknowledged and Mendel and his work that was done way before 35-40 years back. So friends, what I want to really say, that most of these discoveries of new knowledge undergo this very painful birthing process. The first discoverer of the truth himself is not too sure if the grain of wisdom that he has got is of really any value. The other that we see is that the dominant forces of that era will also want to suppress it and to put it to obscurity. But the bite of wisdom lies deeply buried in time, just waiting for the right milieu to manifest itself. So personally, I feel that the truth, the wisdom is unperishable. It is we who will perish. It is our choice that we have to make whether we want to share our truths. And I believe in the era where homeopathy is presently, it becomes more of an obligation, rather a choice, to share our truths, our insights, and to leave the rest to the universe to carry it wherever it is needed and let it germinate whenever it is needed. If we fail to do this, we will lose the opportunity to be the vehicle to carry this truth and to bring this to the consciousness of mankind. So this is how I would urge all my colleagues, my students to share, to publish whatever they learn, wherever they learn, and however they learn. At the end, for those who are interested, from where I got this story is from this wonderful book called by Siddhartha Mukherjee, The Gene and Intimate History. You can read it if genetics interests you. And with this, I would leave all of you think what we need to do. Thank you.